On December 3, 1967, a man named Louis Washkansky lay dying in a hospital in Cape Town. His heart was failing. He had days left, maybe hours. In the next room, a 25-year-old woman named Denise Darvall lay with her brain destroyed in a car accident. Her body was still alive. Her heart was perfect. What one surgeon was about to do that night had never been done before. Not on a human being, not anywhere on earth. The medical world would call it reckless. The patient would live just 18 days, and those 18 days would rewrite what it means to be alive. Here's the problem nobody had solved: taking a heart out of one person and sewing it into another. The surgery itself, doctors had actually figured out. In laboratories across America, they had done it in dogs, hundreds of times. The real problem was the heart they needed. A heart only works if it's still alive. To transplant one, you have to take it still beating. From a body at the very moment that body has no future left. But in 1967, the law in almost every country on earth said something simple. If your heart is beating, you are alive. Full stop. So think about what that meant. In the next room, Denise Darvall's brain was gone, destroyed. She would never wake up, never breathe on her own, never be a person again. But her heart was still beating in her chest. So was she alive, or was she dead? In 1967, the honest answer was nobody knew. There was no law for it, no definition, no line. And the surgeon who reached into that room and took that heart would be forced to answer a question that medicine itself had been too afraid to ask. The strangest part of this story is who got there first. For years, the surgeons closest to a human heart transplant were American. Norman Shumway at Stanford, Richard Lower in Virginia. They had spent a decade perfecting this exact operation in the lab. They were the favorites. Everyone in the field assumed the first human heart transplant would happen in the United States. But the Americans were stuck. Their law required them to wait until a donor's heart had stopped completely, on its own. And a heart that has already been stopped for several minutes is usually too damaged to ever beat again in someone else. So they waited and waited. The very thing that made them careful, the law, the caution, the fear of getting it wrong, was the thing holding them back. Years later, Richard Lower admitted it out loud. He said God had never forgiven him for his hesitation, and that the glory went to Cape Town instead of to Virginia. Because in Cape Town, there was a surgeon who would not wait. His name was Christiaan Barnard. He had trained in America too, at the University of Minnesota, alongside those same pioneers, but he had done far fewer of these operations. His own transplanted dogs had never survived more than a few days. On paper, he wasn't the favorite. He was barely even in the race. What Barnard had was something the Americans didn't. South African law allowed 2 doctors to certify a death, and Barnard was willing to act on it. He didn't even tell his own hospital's directors what he was about to attempt. When they asked him afterward why he hadn't checked with them first, he simply said, "I didn't think it was necessary." The donor arrived by accident, literally. On the afternoon of December 2nd, Denise Darvall and her mother crossed a street in Cape Town to buy a cake. A car came out of nowhere. Her mother was killed instantly. Denise was rushed to Groote Schuur Hospital with a shattered skull and a brain injury she could not survive. Her father, Edward Darvall, was led into a side room and told the truth. His wife was dead. His daughter's brain was gone, and she would never come back. And then he was asked an impossible question. Would he give her heart to save a dying stranger in the next ward? He took about 4 minutes to decide. Then he said, "If there's no hope for her, then try to save this man's life." Down the corridor, Louis Washkansky was waiting. 53 years old, a grocer, a soldier who had fought in the war, a weightlifter who had already survived 3 heart attacks and was now down to a fraction of a working heart. The doctors had given him weeks, so when they offered him a heart that had never once been transplanted into a living human being, he didn't hesitate either. He said yes. That night, 2 operating rooms ran side by side. In one of them, Denise. In the other, Louis. And the team did not rush her death. They switched off the machine keeping her body alive, and they watched and they waited until her heart slowed and faltered and finally stopped on its own. Only then was she pronounced dead. Only then did they take the heart. And then Christiaan Barnard did the thing no human being had ever done. He lifted a heart out of one chest and turned to the empty space, waiting in another. He said later that the moment he stared down into a chest with no heart in it at all, the full weight of what he was attempting finally hit him. He sewed the new heart into place. They warmed it. They sent an electric shock through it. Nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. The heart just sat there, silent, inside a stranger's body. And for a few unbearable seconds, it looked like all of it had been for nothing. And then, it moved. A flutter, then a single beat, then a rhythm, strong and steady and alive. Barnard looked down at it and said, "Christ, it's going to work." Louis Washkansky woke up. He became the first human being in history to open his eyes with another person's heart beating inside his chest. His wife came to see him. He talked to her. He talked to the doctors. When Barnard asked if he understood what they had done, Washkansky said, "You promised me a new heart." And then he said the words that flew around the world, "I'm still alive." And he was. The operation had worked. For the first time ever, a human heart had been moved from one body into another, and the person had lived. So the world lost its mind. Within 48 hours, reporters from every continent were pouring into Cape Town. Christiaan Barnard, an unknown surgeon from the southern tip of Africa, was suddenly on the cover of every magazine on the planet. As he put it himself, on Saturday, he was a surgeon almost no one had heard of. By Monday, he was famous everywhere on Earth. But there was a problem. And it was the one thing all that fame could not fix. A transplanted heart to the body that receives it is an intruder. Your immune system exists for one purpose: to find anything that isn't you and destroy it. And it does not make an exception for the organ keeping you alive. From the very first beat, Louis Washkansky's own body began trying to reject the new heart, to attack it, to kill it. There was only one way to stop that. You had to shut the immune system down. So the doctors gave Washkansky powerful drugs to suppress his body's defenses, to stop it from destroying the heart that was saving him. And it worked. The heart was never rejected. It beat strong and steady every single day he was alive. But a body with its defenses switched off cannot fight anything else either. Not an infection, not a cold, not pneumonia. 18 days after the operation, Louis Washkansky's lungs filled with infection, and his shut-down body had nothing left to fight it with. The same drugs protecting his new heart had left him defenseless against everything else. On December 21st, 1967, he died. And his heart, the transplanted heart, the impossible heart, was still beating perfectly at the moment he was gone. By every obvious measure, the first heart transplant was a failure. The patient was dead in less than 3 weeks. Critics called it reckless, premature. Within a couple of years, surgeons all over the world tried the same operation, watched their patients die, and quietly gave up. The whole thing was nearly abandoned. But look at what those 18 days actually proved. They proved it was possible. A human being could live with another human's heart. The barrier had never been the surgery, and it was never the heart. It was the immune system. And the moment medicine learned to control that in the early 1980s, everything changed. Today, more than 5,000 heart transplants are done every year. The people who receive them don't live 18 days. On average, they live almost 12 years. Some live for decades, and every single one of those lives traces back to one night in Cape Town, and a failure that refused to stay a failure. And remember the question we started with: a beating heart, a destroyed brain, alive or dead? Louis Washkansky's 18 days forced the world to finally answer it. Within a year, a committee at Harvard redefined death itself, not as the moment your heart stops, but as the moment your brain is gone. The line you live by today, the line between alive and dead, was redrawn in part because of what happened in those two rooms. A man lived for 18 days, and in those 18 days, he changed what it means to die and what it means to be alive.